The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
So today's video started out as something completely different. Not to rip off Monty Python, but John Cleese, you are my fucking hero. Today's video was originally all about Giancarlo Esposito and his casting in the MCU. Well, potential casting in the MCU. Nothing is official, but he himself has spoken on it. In the video, I talk about why I don't necessarily enjoy the idea of him, Giancarlo Esposito, pronouns pal, playing Professor X. It wasn't because of the skin color, but because the dichotomy between Professor X and Magneto is not necessarily Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, but other historical figures. So much to the fact that in the video, I went and got proof from one man, an X-Men writer, Chris Claremont, who actually has the say in what is and isn't accurate because he created it. But while making this video, I realized that Chris Claremont is in the news again, and I went and jumped off on a tangent. We're going to start today's video a little different than usual, and then it's going to go off the rails in a way I've never gone off the rails before. I'm a little embarrassed, but for the sake of comedy, I'm going to leave it in. So folks, give this a second because you're going to see the biggest tonal shift in history. This video, be warned, this video is bipolar. The shit I cover from Twitter later on, it's so dumb. Let's just get there together. Giancarlo Esposito is one of the best working actors today. Hell, some would say of all time, and I'd agree. That guy is creepy. The Chicken Man is one of, if not the best TV villains of all time. If shows set in the meth capital of the West, New Mexico, aren't for you, Giancarlo Esposito has been a part of Star Wars, The Boys, Trading Places, and a whole lot more. So why am I not excited for his next endeavor? Keep listening. But before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to WCBS with your bell notification turned on to all, so that way you don't miss any content from world-class bullshitters. Marvel movies have been at the forefront of cinema for more than a decade. The MCU is the biggest thing of all time financially, but that's changing faster than we realize. The massive announcements from Comic-Con were more dizzying than they were satisfying. Since then, everyone's been buzzing about DC and their fiasco. But over the weekend, we learned a little about what could be coming from the MCU, and it's conflicting because it's the story of quality over accuracy. Giancarlo Esposito could be heading to the MCU. The 64-year-old actor addressed the possibility during a Friday appearance at TJH's superhero car show in Comic-Con in San Antonio. While taking several audience questions, Esposito was asked about his rumored role in Marvel's X-Men reboot, which is expected to arrive sometime in Phase 6 or 7. So I have not worked for Marvel yet, the Mandalorian star told the crowd. I've been in a room with them and I've talked with them, and to answer your question, I think what they do is on the line of that mythological journey that Joe Campbell talked about, who happened to be a friend of George Lucas, that George Lucas put into his stories. They do the same thing. Esposito proceeded to name drop some of the comic book characters he could possibly portray. So there's been talks of Magneto, there's been talks of Dr. Freeze, there's been talks of, who else are they talking about over there, he said. Oh, Doom! And there is Professor X. The actor was then asked to name a character he most wanted to play. Pick one, he responded. I'm going to go for something that's a little different. I'm going to go and put it out in the universe. That is, Professor X. Ahead of Comic-Con San Diego, rumors began swirling that Esposito was in talks to play Professor X in the new X-Men chapter. Since then, fans including Kevin Durant have taken to social media to co-sign the potential casting. I'm torn. Acting like Giancarlo Esposito isn't a great actor would be lying. I'm not into that. I'm also not into them changing the character's appearance. Comic books are a visual medium. They're the perfect blend of art and story. That's why I love making them. And it's incredibly important for the actor to look like the character. Giancarlo Esposito as Professor X. I don't see it. But in terms of acting chops, Stevie Wonder could see it too. He's great, but he doesn't look the part. I'm going to stop here because that's the only reason anyone would have for not liking this decision. Thanks for watching. So now that we've weeded those people out, let's get to the real problem. X-Men is a deep property that goes beyond Wolverine and Cyclops. The X-Men is one of the richest parts of comic history. It acts as an allegory for society and is loved by millions. What people love is the delicate balance of real-world issues and fantasy, the human drama and the unimaginable. X-Men is everything these idiots making movies want. So, of course, they're going to alter it and miss the point entirely. One of the key elements to the X-Men story is the battle between Charles Xavier and Magneto. They both want a world that is safe for mutants. Professor X is a little more ideological. Magneto wants results by any means necessary. Over the past few years, people on the internet have been under the impression that Professor X and Magneto were Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, but that's wrong, and Marvel doesn't care, and if you question it, you're a racist. Marvel, please call me that. The two figureheads of the X-Men series, Professor X and Magneto, were long rumored to be stand-ins for African-American civil rights leaders Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. This rumor, pervasive as it is unfortunately just that, though the opposing mutants share some tangible similarities with both activists. The characters were in fact both based on Israeli Prime Ministers David Ben-Gurion and Menachem Begin. The X-Men were created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in 1963 at the height of the civil rights movement in the United States. Mutants that make up the team were used as thinly veiled allegories for minorities, and over the years have stood for many oppressed groups in America. Those with different sexual orientations, ethnic backgrounds, and even religious beliefs. Early on in the series' run, two ideological sides of the conflict were presented. Professor Charles Xavier wanted mutants to champion their cause peacefully, while Magneto believed mutants should actively fight against those who oppress them. But to say both of those men were based on Dr. King and Malcolm X is false. Longtime X-Men writer Chris Claremont stated as much in a 2016 interview with Empire Online magazine. There's a lot of talk online now that Magneto stands in for Malcolm X and Xavier stands for Martin Luther King. But for me, being an immigrant white, to make that analogy felt incredibly presumptuous. An equivalent analogy could be made to Menachem Begin as Magneto, evolving through his life from terrorist in 1947 to winner of the Nobel Peace Prize 30 years later. Claremont went on to say that his goal for Magneto was eventually to become Xavier's successor as leader of the X-Men and headmaster of the School for the Gifted. The last detail of Begin's life in particular was an inspiration for Claremont in writing Magneto. That evolution was something I wanted to apply to the relationship between Xavier and Magneto. It's an evolving 150-issue arc. Claiming that Professor X and Magneto were inspired by Dr. King and Malcolm X respectively does a disservice to both men. Dr. King was not as passive as Xavier, nor was Malcolm X a violent mass murderer like Magneto. While Stan Lee never envisioned Magneto as a traditional villain, he also didn't grant him a sympathetic backstory. Magneto's past during the Holocaust was written by Claremont. The X-Men are often inspired by real-world events and real people, but true inspirations for Professor X and Magneto were not, and never have been, Dr. King and Malcolm X. Now, I mentioned a name earlier, Chris Claremont. If you don't know the name, apologize. The guy created everything great about the X-Men in the last 40-plus years. He's a comic creator who gets it. He's not one of these flash-in-the-pan ideologues. He's not some weak groupthink individual. He's a great writer who made some sarcastic jokes, and those tightwads are livid. Which tightwads? You know, the people who don't like to have fun, the people who are so literal they take everything seriously. Living that type of life would be so boring. Let's make fun of these socially justice-minded fools. Actually, they're doing a pretty good job of that themselves. Let's just see what happened. Comics Twitter went wild on Saturday evening during an attempt that sought to cancel prolific Marvel writer Chris Claremont following an appearance at C2E2. Most of the information on the panel came from the Twitter account ComicXF, which posted several out-of-context quotes that successfully managed to get an internet mob angry with the X-Men Legends' dry sense of humor. The Twitter thread was amplified by Comic Tropes YouTuber Chris Piers, whose tweet set the internet ablaze with speculation by a woke mob of self-professed comic book fans who surmised Claremont was losing his mind. Others stated the prolific X-Men writer was problematic. I try to make fun of these as I go, but god damn it, I hate people like this. Seriously, what the fuck? How are your lives fun? It's like, look, I'm gonna watch my favorite movie of all time, but let me write a 5-page essay on why cultural appropriation's wrong. Well, you know what, folks? If that's really how shit went, I would have to write a fucking essay every time I went to watch Beverly Hills Cop because the only person to drop the N-word in that movie is Axel Foley, and they want me to have some fucking self-reflection moment because of the use of the word. And I don't give a shit. Movies are entertainment. These are comic books. This is a fucking medium where a dude has a metal skeleton and you could shoot him in the face and the bullet will come out and he will heal himself naturally. Or this woman is the most powerful being in all of existence and she fucking goes into outer space and wipes out a star system of people and then has to be sentenced in a fucking tribunal in outer space. Like, these are comic books. How are the people that make videos about them so boring? Like, how are you people? Seriously, I watch your shit. I know who you are. I know exactly your tropes, your beats, your this, your that. How can you exist in a life that is so boring, yet you want to report on the most fantastical things on the planet? Like, there's a reason why people will dump billions of dollars into acquiring comic book IPs because they make billions of dollars on screen. But again, we are stuck in the goddamn mire talking about this and that, and look, this should be better. Everybody, make your own shit. Continuing. By contrast, many fans and creators came to Claremont's defense, echoing Claremont's comments, lamenting the direction of the MCU films and X-Men comics have taken due to Disney and Marvel's woke agenda. As of this writing, no video has surfaced of the recent C2E2 panel, only a summary of sorts that was loosely described by the ComicsXF Twitter account. The first of several tweets in the thread comes across as a user taking issue with the fact that Claremont was late to the panel before the user takes aim at the Marvel writer's jokes. And let's just read you these tweets. Doug found that it's not good to be a slave in Asgard. It got a chuckle from people who understand being a slave by anywhere is bad. Tweeted by Comics XF, implying Claremont doesn't understand slavery to be a bad thing without providing any further evidence to back up his nonsensical argument. Well, to Comics XF, Chris Claremont isn't a fucking idiot. Most people that aren't fucking idiots don't need clarification. Are you a fucking idiot, or are you trying to be offended for attention? Ask yourself this question, because everyone out there that's trying to fight for these causes, you just seem like an idiot because you miss jokes and context. Like, if you're slow, the whole world will understand. See, we're in a much nicer society than you people realize. If people need help, there is help out there. And I personally want to help you to find a sense of humor. Reporting that the X-Men legend had allegedly made fun of the MCU's much maligned Thor: Love and Thunder, the user declared Claremont was complaining about Thor: Love and Thunder and asserted Tessa Thompson should go back to making Men in Black. Sorry, Persons in Black. Well, Comics XF, I like this joke personally, but Comics XF says we're not allowed to laugh, so let's continue on. The famed X-Men writer appeared to have been making a dry joke about the identity politics of how Marvel have forced them into their films and comics at the expense of writing. And I'm quoting. Says he can get away with being another white guy by playing fast and loose with racial identity because I'm British and we've been doing this for 1,000 years, Claremont reportedly joked, doubling down on his stance about identity politics and media. Comics XF then reported Claremont followed up with another joke, citing the Marvel legend would allegedly turn Kitty into the cosmic daughter of T'Challa and Storm thanks to the Panther God. Would have turned Kitty black. See, that's a joke for fans by people that understand this shit. There is a few, it's not even a smattering. There is an influx of fake geek people. It used to be fake geek girls or fake gamer girls or whatever this shit was. And look, it's not just women, it's men too. It's kind of like weaker dudes that do this shit, but these people are fakers. There's a phrase, fake it till you make it. Well, these motherfuckers are never going to make it anywhere. I don't know if they're in a basement. I don't need to pull that tactic. Look, they have electricity. They can get this shit out there. You can be rich and stupid. You can be poor and stupid. This person just chooses to be public and stupid. And I think this joke is great. Now, Comics XF, are you going to be offended on my behalf? Because unless you're a person of color and all this other shit that you people pull, then shut the fuck up. Don't be offended that somebody made a Persons in Black joke and turning Kitty Pryde black joke. It's fucking funny. Sorry you don't get it. Actually, I'm not sorry you don't. You know what I am sorry for? That you live a life like this. Would anybody enjoy being this person? No. And nobody enjoys your fucking tweets. That's why the only reason you get likes or attention is because of your ridiculous take. I can't believe anybody would believe Comics XF, and I can't believe comic tropes would actually buy into this shit. Dude, like I said, I've watched your shit for fucking years. I still do when I'm working on projects and stuff, but I don't need this social commentary. It ain't your fault that comics from the 40s had some offensive shit. Guess what? Everybody else in the real world moves on. It's like the most boring form of entertainment. Let me tell you why the past was bad and let me make it right for you. No, you don't need to make the past right for anybody, people without senses of humor. People like Comics XF and all this other shit, and yeah, I butchered their name and I'm not going to even repeat it because I don't care enough to go back and fix that dub or flub. Do you get where I'm coming from with the frustration as a fan? This is a long way of saying some people that don't understand comic books, they're making shit bad for everyone else. It's the attitudes like this garbage that gets us stupid casting and race swaps and all this other shit. How do you equate the two? Really fucking simple. Because there's enough idiots out there that only like this stuff enough that they're gonna champion and echo whatever retarded opinion is public on whatever side of the aisle the company that owns the IP votes for. Well, you want to know the opinion of comic book movies? Well, who runs Disney? There you're going to understand exactly why comic books are talked about a certain fucking way. And it's pointless because everybody loses. I really don't care if a mega corporation makes more money, but they're hurting themselves. I don't really care if somebody else doesn't like a movie, but I do. Guess what? Shit like this kills the fandom. It cuts at the base. That's why Star Wars, people like Simon Pegg, oh, you're all toxic. No, because people that make Star Wars are assholes, and they do shit to fucking poke the bear of a loyal fan base and decades of this shit. Look, you're not gonna be able to undo 50 years of loyalty to a character in one movie because it's the right opinion of 2022. So Chris Claremont is right. Chris Claremont is not this archaic old white guy. He's somebody with a fucking decent sense of humor, and he's somebody with a good head on his shoulders. Outside of his creative works, he clearly can present an interesting joke, a fun conversation. The guy is entertaining. There's a reason why he's there, and people like whoever are tweeting about him. If the person that tweeted about Chris Claremont was as interesting as Chris Claremont, then somebody else would be tweeting about them. But instead, you're the butt of a joke, and you're the reason why comic books and geek culture in general is infected with trash. It's not right, it's not left, it's idiots that are in charge of this shit, and that is why it's fallen apart. Thanks for watching today's video. Yes, it's over, but don't cry because there's more, a lot more from World Class Bullshitters. And there's only one way to get it. Hit that subscribe button below. When you do that, you'll get notifications and updates from World Class Bullshitters every time we go live. Basically, you won't miss anything. And if there's one thing I hate, it's FOMO. But the thing most people hate more than FOMO is fear of missing out on World Class Bullshitters, because there's just some things you can't undo. So folks, do yourselves a favor and never miss anything from World Class Bullshitters. One last thing before you go, hit the thumbs up button. Not for our egos, no, they're big enough as this, but it does help us fight the algorithm here, and well, it's man versus machine, and that's the real fight. But if that's not your battle, that's okay. There's one last way you can help WCBS, and that's going over to shopwcbs.com, picking up a t-shirt, a beer glass, a sweatshirt, a poster, all sorts of ways to back WCBS. The difference between us and other YouTube channels is I'm the artist that makes all this stuff, so if you enjoy art beyond t-shirts, you can even read our comic books. We got it all. We're called the epitome of pop culture for a reason, and no, again, it's not for our egos. So folks, make sure you're involved with every aspect of World Class Bullshitters, not just for us, but do it for yourself. We're making the change in entertainment everybody out there wants to see. And a special thank you goes out to all of our wonderful patrons who make this content possible. Go to patreon.com/worldclassbs to get involved and help out the channel.